What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video, and today I finally, for God knows how long I've been trying to put this shit together, I finally have Crystron. This is more of a pure, quote-unquote, pure Crystron list. It is 50 cards, instead of as close to 40 as I can get, just simply because trying to fit things in for the current format, couldn't find a lot of cuts, and if I was to cut things, I'd lose consistency, surprisingly enough. So let's jump right on in to the deck profile so that I can hopefully fire through this. Starting us off, we have 3 copies of Crystron Smyger. Ignore how dirty my hands are. Work has not been the cleanest. Smyger has 2 effects. You can essentially pop a card you control to special summon a Crystron tuner from your deck in defense position, but the more important effect, and the only effect that you're most likely ever activating with Smyger, is you can banish him from your graveyard in order to add a Crystron spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So yeah, we were running 3 of him because he is a 1-card starter. You can use him as your normal summon. There are a couple of other cards that get this card directly into the graveyard, but the card he searches is your 1-card combo, as well as him being a 1-card combo. 3 copies of Crystron Solfefnir, simply because Solfefnir is your best extender, as well as very importantly, a level 5 machine. If you guys have access to K9, because I know Izuna is a whopping $33. I haven't checked in a couple of days, but I know Izuna is very expensive. I can't afford it, that's for fucking sure. Yeah, Solfefnir can special summon itself from your hand or graveyard by discarding a Crystron card specifically. And then whenever you special summon it, you pop a card you control, and then if it itself on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Crystron tuner from your deck. Yeah, right? Yeah, from your deck in defense. Or not, just a Crystron monster. It doesn't have to be a tuner. Yeah, you can special summon any Crystron monster from your deck in defense position. Then, I made a last-minute change to this list because I reread a card, and it did something that this deck is allergic to, and that's, not Sulfador, because I went from 2 copies of Sulfador to 3 copies of Sulfador. So Sulfador, if it's in your hand or graveyard, can special summon itself by targeting a Crystron card you control and destroying it, and then if it's normal or specialed, you can send 2 Crystron cards from your deck to the graveyard. Next, we're playing 2 copies of Crystron Tristaros, which E-Telly's a Crystron tuner from the deck, I believe. No, just a Crystron monster from... E-Telly's a Crystron monster from the deck, and that allows you to immediately on resolution synchro summon using that monster that you summon. It doesn't exactly have to be using... Tristaros doesn't need to use himself, but typically you use him in order to make whatever it is you're going for. And if you can end on a level 5 being on your board with Tristaros, you can summon out a copy of Citri and make a level 9 synchro that requires 2 or more tuners, which Crystron has. We'll get into that later. And you can definitely go down on Citri. There's ways you can kind of cut things out of the deck. I just feel like if I go down to 1 Citri, I'm going to draw it all the time. And I don't like drawing my Garnet, so I'm playing 2 of it. Plus, opening with it gives you a Crystron card that you can for free discard off of Solfefnir to, be able to summon Solfefnir. Next, we're on 1 copy of Crystron Thistvern. Thistvern can banish itself from the graveyard to search for a Crystron monster. It also has the same first effect as Smyger. So, that is, that. Then we're on the other 1-card combo, 3 copies of Crystron Inclusion. This card on activation adds a Crystron card from your deck to your hand. It also gives battle destruction protection to all of your Crystrons. soft battle destruction protection. It also, I believe, prevents your opponent from banishing your card. Or no, that's something else. But you can banish it from your yard to target a Crystron monster in your graveyard and revive it. And then we have the one Crystron cluster. Cluster allows prevents your opponent from banishing your Crystron monsters by card effect, as well as lets you pop one card, or if you control a Crystron Synchro, allows you to pop 2 cards by shuffling one of your banished Crystron cards, excluding itself, back into your deck. So you can constantly reaccrue your combo pieces as well as, extenders, like Thistfern, or if your Sulfadors and Sulfefnirs end up getting banished, Cluster lets you put them back into the deck. And that is going to be it for the Crystron cards within the deck. Next up, we have my multiple different side engines. Starting us off, we have 3 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. I feel like Fenrir, in this deck in particular, and in the current format, is really good because being able to remove level 5 or rank 5 monsters from your opponent's board is really, really solid. And if they wasted a negate on this, that's one less negate that you have to worry about playing into with your Crystron monsters. And I am aware that, yes, most hand traps that people are running anymore are Dominus Purge, Dominus Impulse, things to stop, or things that aren't monsters that negate things. And that brings me to my counter argument. Why worry about your opponent stopping your Kashtira cards when they're with trap cards when they're here to, 1, bait things out, and 2, be really obnoxious removal pieces. They serve a dual purpose, because next I'm also running Kashtira Unicorn. And Unicorn can rip stuff out of your opponent's extra deck. You gain knowledge. If your opponent activates a Yummy monster effect on the field, you get a look in their extra deck. And then you can remove the most important Yummy synchro to the thing, or to the Yummy game plan. You can also just remove other things that might break your board, like Typhon, or if your opponent's on Vanquished Soul Canine, you can remove important rank 5 Xyz monsters from Vanquished Soul Canine. Then I'm on the 1 copy of Birth, you just have a search target for Unicorn. The last minute change, funnily enough, was a 1 of Kashtira Theosis, because I reread it, and I read that it locks you into Xyz monsters. And last I checked, Crystron is not a Xyz deck. But yeah, that is going to be it for my Kashtira package. If you don't like running Kashtiras, or if you don't want to run the Kashtiras, you can just completely cut this deck. It's why it is more than 40. There are cards that if you don't feel comfortable playing, or feel like aren't good into the current format, you can cut them very easily. I'm just playing those because I feel like in this current format, they're really good. Next, we're on 3 copies of Speedroid Terrortop and 1 copy of Take Tomborg. Terrortop is another 1-card combo in this deck that gets you to Smiger without using your normal summon. Because if you go summon Terrortop, search Tomborg, Tomborg summon itself, you get a free Link 2, and the Link 2 we're playing, one of the Link 2s that we're playing, is a free Foolish Burial. So running running essentially 3 more 1-card combos. And then we get into the proper non-engine stuff. Starting us off with 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. This card also allows you to set up Smiger while also breaking into your opponent's board, negating a couple of things. It also lets you set up, if you open with a cluster when going second, you can go Droplet, pitch, Smiger, cluster, and whatever else you don't need in your hand to negate 1, 2, maybe even 3 things your opponent controls, and also lock them out of being able to respond to this with monsters, possibly spells, and or traps. Pretty solid card, especially in this deck. Again, being able to set up your graveyard is important as all heck in this deck. Then I'm playing 3 copies of Book of Eclipse. Book of Eclipse is also relatively good. It's both an offensive and defensive option. You can start your turn off by activating Eclipse. If your opponent ashes it, then, that's an Ash you don't have to worry about, and now you just have to worry about if they're playing Purge, and if they're playing Purge, then you won't have to worry about Ash for the rest of the duel, unless they set their Purges. This also helps, like I said, bait out negations. I'm building this to be able to let the Crystrons play at the rate they want to play and can play, while also breaking through boards and establishing yourself into the game. Next, I'm on 2 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust, and my targets for Thrust are a copy of Foolish Burial and a copy of Triple Tactics Talent. Foolish Burial is 1-card combo because if they stop your Speedroid stuff, but you have Thrust, you can go Thrust, grab Foolish, send Smyger, and go full combo, and you get a free level 3 body on the board that you can convert into Link material or whatever you want. And then I'm on 1 copy of Crossout Designator and 1 copy of Called by the Grave. Since I do not have the Molcharmies, you can 100% cut Crossout, but for people that are that have Molcharmies that can play the Molcharmies, I would consider keeping Crossout in here because it is a very powerful one-of. And if you can cross out a Fua or cross out a Perulia, it's pretty strong. Plus, Called By is just Called By. Being able to stop things is pretty nice, especially if your opponent activates Lancia. Being able to Called By the Lancia in response, really strong, because Lancia shuts this deck down pretty hard without the Canines, because I know Canine is competent all in and of itself. So that is going to be it for the board breaker / generic spells. Now we're going to move into the hand traps, which are very few and far between in our main deck. We got 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. I know this format currently has a lot of searching going on. This deck in and of itself searches a lot. So Droll, I feel like, is a power card that you can't really skip out on this format, but it's definitely a card that you can board out of. It's also a card that, funnily enough, shuts us down pretty hard. Like I said, we do search quite a bit. Smyger searches, Thistfern searches, Inclusion searches, all of our 1-card combos search, and that opens us up to Droll, and we have to search a good 3, 4, maybe 5 times during our combo. So having Droll in here, not just as a cross-out target, but also as just a generically good card to shut down our opponents, is pretty strong, and that is going to be it for the main deck. I know 50 cards is a lot, but the deck isn't built with inconsistency and without consistency in mind, which is why I'm trying to max out on all the different routes into 1-card combos as well as the 1-card combos themselves. Now, starting us off in the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Crystron Eleskeletus, which on summon allows me to, first off, all of your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack and defense while it's face up on the field. And then, if it's synchro summoned, you can add a Crystron card from your graveyard or banishment to the hand, which is why I was talking about discarding your Inclusion, or aggressively sending Inclusion from your field to the graveyard to be able to negate things, with Droplet specifically. And if it on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Crystron from your graveyard or banishment. So, pretty strong. Tristaros also has another effect to banish itself in the graveyard to pop a synchro monster you control, and special summon 2 Crystrons from the deck. That is how you make Cyber Dragon Nova. I'm just going to say it because we're playing Nova into Infinity, because an Omni Negate, a free Omni Negate, is a free Omni Negate, as well as this being able to just get back whatever we want. Yeah. And then the level 9 Synchro that I talked about earlier, alluded to, is Quarian Gandrax, which on summon can banish monsters your opponent controls or in their graveyard up to the number of materials used for its summon. So you're at minimum making this with 3 materials because it requires 2 tuners plus a non-tuner. So that's a Trishula, but it doesn't banish from hand, and it can banish from a mixture of field and graveyard. Really strong. Then we have 1 copy of Crystron Emitrix. So if you don't go through your Thistfern during your main combo line, which typically you don't, or you don't need to, you can summon your Thistfern from the deck since it is a level 3 with Tristaros, make Emitrix, and then Emitrix books everything else on the board. Both of these have effects when they're destroyed. Amitrix lets you revive a non-synchro Crystron from your graveyard, and Quarian Gandrax lets you summon any monster that was banished, or any monster that is banished to your side of the field. So it's like a monster, it's literally Monster Reborn, but for banish instead. Then we're on the 1 Samurai Destroyer, the 1 Coral Dragon, the 1 Vermilion Dragon Mech, 1 Navy Dragon Mech, 1 FA Dawn Dragster, and then for our Link monsters, we're on Cherubini, which is what you're making with the Speedroid engine. Then we're also playing 1 Clockwork Knight, which is how normal summoning Smiger is a 1-card combo. 1 copy of SP Little Knight, 1 Cyber Dragon Infinity, 1 Cyber Dragon Nova, and to top it all off, 1 copy of Sky Slayer Typhon, or Sky Crisis Typhon. That is it for the extra deck. Now we'll move on over to the side deck. And the side deck is kind of alternatives to what's currently already in the main deck as a whole, but also just generically good cards into the format. Starting you off, we have 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Rock, aka Nibiru the Primal Being, aka Fat Rock. We like Fat Rock. Fat Rock is a lot better now that Crossout isn't at 3. And Omni Negates before the 5th summon are a little bit more difficult to come by. So, you know, that's pretty good. And then we have 3 copies of Dino Wrestler Pankratops. I know people are playing Pank because he doesn't have to activate in order to special summon. But you know who else doesn't have to activate in order to special summon? The Kashtira's. Yeah. Next, I'm also on 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More, just because the deck already doesn't have enough OTK potential when, you know, going second. And that's just kind of because the cards are, a lot of the older cards are old and the newer cards are very pushed, but the newer cards are pushed for going first. And you can't always rely on winning your coin tosses or die rolls and go first every time. Then 3 copies of Evenly Matched, because I feel like this card is very strong into the current format. You can go main 1, battle phase, activate Evenly, and obviously if you open Evenly plus Droplet, and your opponent tries to negate the Evenly, you can chain Droplet, send the Evenly, and send whatever else you may want in order to help break through a board. Most likely you're just sending the Evenly and maybe sending another monster, so that way your opponent can't respond with another monster. And you break through the board, and if you can set up Smiger in the graveyard, perfect. Then I'm also playing 3 copies of Solemn Strike, because negating summons is very strong, as well as negating monster effects, also really strong. Strike can be interchanged with Judgment as well, if you would rather play Judgment. I chose Strike just because instead of negating spells and traps that I know I can just play around, I would rather negate the summon of something so my opponent can't revive it later, or negate a monster effect in the hand and get rid of the card from their hand when going first. This card is also, you know, counter trap. Can't respond to it unless it's another counter trap. And that is the deck. Let me pause and I'll come right on back with you guys in just a moment. Alright guys, in conclusion, first off I want to talk about one of the synchro monsters I'm choosing to play, Coral Dragon. I am just now realizing I have no way to make this. Unless there's a really roundabout way for me to be able to make this involving, you know, something. You can definitely replace it with just about anything. You can play Crystron Phoenix. You can choose to play a Zeus or just any other generic level 7 or level 9 synchro like Black Rose Dragon or Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. I honestly might replace it with the Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, but that is my bad. I am sorry. I am going to acknowledge that now before anybody in the comments says anything, and if anybody in the comments says anything, haha, I beat you to it because I addressed it within the video, and I realized my mistake literally as I was reorganizing the deck to be able to make this outro. But again, I would replace it with another generic level 7 synchro, maybe even another generic level 9. You can't really do Trish because, yeah, but you can do level 7s a little bit easier, which is why we play Samurai Destroyer, why we're playing both Navy and Vermilion. And there is also the argument to play a singular copy of Crystron Rosenix over a second copy of Citri, if you wanted that as your bridge to make Coral Dragon and, you know, not have a useless Coral Dragon in your deck. But with that, I am going to conclude this video here, and I'm probably just going to shuffle up the deck and mess around with it to see if I can understand the lines myself before I make a combo tutorial video. Keep your eyes out for that one, chat. By the way, I've been streaming over at Twitch. If you guys go to my channel, you can find a link directly to my Twitch. I've been streaming a lot of gaming. I do Pokero. The only thing I don't do over there, surprisingly, is Yu-Gi-Oh! So if you guys are interested in stuff that isn't Yu-Gi-Oh!, come on over to my Twitch. I stream twice a week because work, and not feeling like streaming after work or before work because I don't wake up early enough to stream before work. But, yeah. With that, I will see everybody later. Peace out.